name's Calum. I study poetry. I read poetry. I write poetry. I write about poetry. I often have very strange dreams about poetry. Basically, I just love poetry. Now, I appreciate that might put me in the minority here this evening. I don't know, do we have any poetry lovers in tonight? Yeah. Good, good. And you admit it as well, which is very brave. Well done. Although I do think that poetry and stand-up comedy are actually very similar. I mean, they're both made of language, they're both very rhythmical, and they both attract misanthropic drunkards with a chip on their shoulder and a desperate desire to be loved. So good evening. But comedians and poets are, of course, very different. In fact, a different species, you might say. Comedians like to make people laugh. Poets would rather make you cry. The existential traumas of the human soul. That is poetry. But what I'd like to do tonight is combine these ancient and sacred art forms. And I'd like to pose a question: how would a poet tell a joke? To that end, I prepared a little poem that I'd like to read for you this evening, entitled simply, "How did the chicken cross the road?" Oh Muse, I prithee, why did the chicken cross the road? Who is this bird that cannot fly and has no fixed abode? And what the fuck's she doing stood outside the haberdashery? For we both know that this bird's home is barn or yard or battery. And given that she's more spare breasts than you could shake a dairy at, I think this ain't no free-range posh bird, but a clucking proletariat. So forgive the strange narration, but it's a pretty odd location, standing outside Central Station checking out the CU Jimmy hats. What gives, Muse? What gives? The bird lives. What's in her mind? Inside that pea-sized brain, what brutal torments would we find? The consciousness of others is a struggle we all face. How fares that little clucker, boxed in by the human race? And Glaswegians at that, she hasn't a chance. See her dream of Chanticleer in avian romance, when a jakey in a tracksuit jumps out of the blue. Spare some change, hen. Fine then, cluck you too. The chicken howls inside. God, why have you forsaken me? I say God, replace that with the equivalent avian deity. I am a humble chicken, and 1,000,000 miles from home. This must be a clucking joke. Is someone pulling on my wishbone? But no, it's real, too real. And now my giblets yearn for cages, despite the harsh conditions and the really shitty wages. Surely must be preferable to all these endless worries. These signs of death surround me. KFC, chicken cottage, curry. Oh, wherefore art thou chicken, and wherefore art thou rolled? And yet, should my pace quicken, I could lose this heavy load. Oh, unbearable burden of chickenhood. Such is every rooster's fate. You spend your best years ovulating, then you end up on a plate. To cluck or not to cluck? I couldn't give a fuck. So she tottered out on Union Street, and sure enough, was struck. The coroner gave his verdict, suicide. Then he took her home for supper, garlic butter, shallow fried. So, like I say, I study poetry. I have some questions. I specialise in experimental poetry, avant-garde poetry, weird poetry. The kind of poems that you look at and your first response is, are you absolutely sure that that's a poem? Those are the kind of poems that I like. The one-word poem, for example. This is a genuine form, developed in the 1960s, just one word in the centre of an otherwise blank page. You've got to remember it was the 60s, they were hippies, they just discovered weed, Zen Buddhism, emptiness was their shtick, you know, they were well into it. But I've taken the one-word poem, inspired by it, I've given it a comedic twist and invented the one-word joke. I'd like to share a few of them with you this evening. So, before I do so, I should let you know that the one-word poets, they didn't think of these poems as entertainment, they were more like objects for meditation, contemplation. So if you don't laugh, it's okay, you may just be experiencing a profound inner humour. So, jokes. Knock. to tell you who's there, but unfortunately the formal constraints of the joke do not. Moving on. Irishman. Light bulb. Ketchup. Gone to the movie bus. Sunday. Observational comedy. Choice of satire. Cameron. Romney. Thatcher. So, it's the one-word joke, a very versatile form. Unfortunately, of course, the one-word poem isn't very fashionable these days. It doesn't quite suit these jaded and cynical times. What's really trendy these days is appropriation, which is basically a pretentious, wanky art word for stealing other people's shit. It's a bit like sampling in hip-hop culture, but just replace the fast cars, the expensive cocktails and the beautiful women with buses, cheap plonk and tissues. So, in that spirit, I have made my own appropriated poem that I'd like to finish with this evening. It's made entirely from language taken from this magazine. It's actually a very good publication. It's remarkable how the enthusiastic and often purple wordplay really brings out the evocative and haunting qualities of the images themselves. Arachnocolcia. Anyway, not my words, the words of Paul Raymond Publications. Anyway, so this is part of a series I've done called Smut Ups. These are great fun to do because they allow me to combine two of my great passions, namely poetry and wanking. So this is our final poem I'd like to leave you with this evening. It's entitled Smut Up Number 2, Susie. My husband will not fuck my arse, so I want you to fuck my arse. I'm quite a slut, my fingers wet, bent over for your hard baguette. A cotton knickered snatch of hair, she's hot, as dirty as you dare. She'll swallow cum and cock she'll suck, get hard here live, this slut needs to fuck. She loves to be a toy, so trace the salty splatter to her face. I'll pull my head away and spit upon your belly and freak my clit. Let's come together, I'm your whore, until I can't come anymore. A tiny room, prime pussy, soon will make you come all afternoon. That's all for me, thank you very much.